Attention duelists, welcome to the Kuribros podcast, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime recap podcast. I'm your host with the most, Phoenix, and joining me, oh hot damn, it's that man, my co-host Andy. Andy, how you doing?
Let me tell you, it's fucking hot outside today. Well, actually, it's nice out, but it was fucking hot yesterday.
It is so muggy out today with the rain and the heat, and there's lantern flies. I hate it. I hate summer. I want winter. Freeze me.
I haven't seen any lantern flies yet, but I know I will be, and I'll be stepping on them in the next month or so.
We went like a solid 2 years where I didn't see them, where I was just at other apartments that never showed up, and now they're back. So I guess they're migrating or just moving in a slow wave. Either way, I hate them. Well, it is pretty fitting to talk about us being annoyed by bugs, because in this episode, we're going to be covering episodes 2 through 5 of Season 1, which will cover the Pegasus vs. Yugi duel, the boat to Duelist Kingdom, and then Yugi vs. Weevil.
For those just joining us, we started off with talking about Season 0, which was a Toei Animation backed project for Yu-Gi-Oh! That started all the stuff before all the duel monsters. And then we got into the pilot episode where Yugi faced Kaiba. And now we're going into the beginning of what is called Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist in the manga. And this is actually the beginning of that part of the manga with Pegasus and everything. And then we'll be going into Duelist Kingdom and Weevil.
And to get us the full experience of covering this show, I am going to be going through and covering what is done in the subs, and Andy is watching what comes out in the dubs, and also is the manga correspondent for this.
I'd be reading the words and the pictures on the pages, and I'd be telling you sometimes things be different in layman's terms.
They're actually allowed to kill people in the manga.
There's a lot of death. A lot more death than in 4Kids, for sure. Actually, and before we really get into the episode too, but I did notice that they did say Ushio got expelled in the dub. I don't know what they say in the sub, but they make a pass. They do a little recap of the first chapter where they talk about that, and they say at the end he gets expelled. They don't say it by name, but they say, "Oh yeah, the big bully got expelled, and Yugi did it."
I don't remember them ever saying anything about that when they covered that in the flashback bit of this segment, but we'll get to that shortly.
All right, so episode 2, do you want me to lead it off?
Yeah, take it away.
All right. So this is the true beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist, like I said. We are introduced to the aspect of duel monsters, and this is the second episode of the series. We are introduced again to Joey absolutely flubbing a duel, this time to Taya. He thinks he's completely on top of the game, and in 2 moves, he is completely obliterated by Taya and her monster card spell card combo. He's confused on why he's losing all these duels. Why isn't he getting better? He buffed his deck up with a lot of strong monsters, he thinks. So he goes to Yugi and he goes, Yugi, why am I losing? Why am I doing so bad? Give me some advice. What do I do? And Yugi looks at his deck and he's like, bro, you got all monsters in this bitch. I'm not this game's about strategy. This game's about friendship. It's about heart of the cards. And you only got the cards. You ain't got the heart. So, like any respectable duelist, they go to the old man. And then in this old man's case, it's Grandpa Solomon Moto, Yugi's grandpa. And they seek advice from him. And this is a little bit where we start getting things different in the manga and the anime, because in the anime, Joey seeks apprenticeship from Joey's grandpa, and Grandpa agrees to train Yugi in the ways of duel monsters, and gives him a real thrashing of a training, where Joey is absolutely exhausted. In the anime, they just go to the card shop and they continue on with events that we will talk about later. But in the anime, the story kind of stops for a second to kind of deal with this bit. Probably a little bit of B-plot stuff for the second, kind of helping pad everything so they can have a little bit more chance to talk about what we're going to be talking about in a second. Later on, as some time pass, Joey, Tristan, Taya, and Yugi are all getting ready to watch the regional finals tournament for dual monsters. And I actually noticed, and I wanted to talk to Phoenix about this, there seems to be like a 4Kids kind of retelling of a certain event where Joey's talking about his training, and he then kind of, I think, either falls asleep mid-sentence, or he just kind of like, it like seems like he's falling asleep, but I could see it also being him like nodding like he's proud about something, and Tristan like kind of bumming his mellow. What is happening in the sub for that?
Your read on it is 100% on. Joey is nodding and thinking back on the training he went through under Grandpa Moto, and is very much just being proud of himself. And even shortly after this little bit, Grandpa does enter the room too, and does say he is proud of how far Joey has come in such a short time. And to reference what you said about it being an unspecified amount of time later, they do say that Joey wanted to be a good enough duelist to go to a city tournament in 1 month. So this is about that much time later.
Which is crazy because, as I was saying, this complete part is like omitted from the anime or the manga. They actually Joey doesn't seek Grandpa's like advice. They just go to the card shop. Yugi's going to be the one to kind of show Joey the ropes a little bit. They'll watch the tournament. Joey will see how like real duelists play, quote unquote, and get a little bit more background that way. This is kind of just like quickly done. So that actually is like the same day, the same events of like with Tetsuya being Joey and Joey be like, I need help. That all happens along with the next little bit. The final match is literally the same night. So I guess that makes sense. Moving on. They actually they get ready to watch the tournament.
Yeah, I was going to say, when they get to the part where they're sitting down to watch the tournament, they do remark that Joey's progress was enough for him to make it to the quarterfinals of the tournament. And then it is quickly revealed that it is the quarterfinals of the city tournament, not the regionals that this is. But still, going to a quarterfinals at your first local tournament or even citywide is very impressive.
Why is that omitted from the dub? It seems like it helps Joey's case a little bit. I don't understand why they went for just a gag about Joey being worked to death.
I have a lot of questions about how well duelists are actually able to perform in this episode and the next one in their rankings and tournaments and where that's gotten them. But we have an actual tournament to watch now. Well, a like 2-turn match.
So as the gang gets ready to watch the match, Kaiba's name actually gets brought up in 2 different fashions. In the anime, they just talk about how he dropped out of the tournament and how he was supposed to be a part of the tournament that we were about to watch. But in the manga, he's still in the coma from Death Tea and technically the pilot episode. And they were like, Yugi, why didn't you join the tournament? Like, you beat Kaiba. You should be able to face the guys like these. And Yugi was like, I don't want to face anyone unless it's Kaiba in like official match, so I have no interest.
I did think that was a very nice bit that they added, that Yugi's very much waiting for what he believes to be a strong opponent to be able to face him in an honorable match. And what I think is very funny, that going forward, Kaiba goes out of his way to make and enter tournaments so Yugi has to duel him.
He's obsessed. He wants to be the best.
That man needs therapy, and he could afford it.
He could, but he refuses. It's just build amusement parks. That's the therapy.
Yep, he replaces his therapy with more dragons.
Like, don't we all? So, now let's get on to the tournament. And we get famed duelist Weevil Underwood and Rex Rapper as the challengers.
Their names in the subs are have it written down. There it is. Insector Haga and Dinosaur Ryuzaki. Or we're going to be calling them Rex and Weevil because that's way easier for me to remember, as I just fumble those words hard. And it does say that their ages are Weevil is 14 and Rex is 15.
As we go on, Joey underestimates Weevil's ability to win because he specializes in bugs. He's like, well, you know what, puny bugs can beat some big old dinosaurs. Yugi kind of, knows that these guys are finalists in a regional tournament, so they're obviously not ones to be underestimated, especially Weevil. Going on with the 2-turn duel, Raptor plays the 2-headed King Rex, which Weevil counters with a basic insect monster card. Raptor goes down to attack. Weevil activates his trap card that traps King Rex. Weevil then upgrades his basic insect with armor laser cannon, and that's how he wins. He uses that magic card insect combo and squashes dinosaurs like bugs.
And it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 1, so life points aren't actually real. You just lose when you're done.
You just lose when the big monster gets blown up. So Weevil wins the tournament. Wahoo. I do surely hate his voice. No faults on the voice actor, but is just hard on the ears, and listening to that for 4 episodes was a little grating.
His voice was perfectly normal in the sub.
Good. It's not like that in the dub.
Speaking of perfectly normal, though, someone enters the scene to award Weevil with the trophy for winning the tournament.
Yes, this is when we are formally introduced to Maximilian Pegasus, the creator of Duel Monsters and the CEO of Industrial Illusions.
His name is Pegasus J. Crawford in the sub, so Pegasus works for either. Something I thought was a little weird, though, was when Pegasus was awarding Weevil with the trophy, like, they zoomed in to show, like, Weevil's face, like, blushing in response to it. So I don't know what they're trying to tell us, but I didn't get the message.
I think what they were trying to tell us was he was just kind of in shock and awe that he was meeting with the guy who literally, in a sense, created Duel Monsters as we know it.
Oh, they hadn't invented the Pog face yet.
So it was just absolute bewilderment. Pegasus awards Underwood with the trophy and then formally invites him to the Duelist Kingdom tournament, which I think is when he finally announced it to the world that he is holding this tournament, because they mentioned it in the little scene after where Pegasus is in the limo with his driver.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of allude to, oh yes, we sent Yugi his own little invitation as well. I don't know if I got to mention this yet, but if I did, I'm sorry, but Yugi got a package before watching the tournament. And in that package, they finally remember to open it after the tournament, and they find a strange glove, star chips, and a videotape. Yugi plays the video, and suddenly Pegasus appears. Pegasus goes on to talk about how he was intrigued with Yugi after he found out about his victory against Kaiba, whenever that was in the timeline of Yu-Gi-Oh! He wants to see Yugi's skills firsthand, so he challenges him in a duel as a videotape through a TV. The gang's kind of like, how are you going to do this? Like, how is this going to work? Kind of thing. And two events kind of separate. The events kind of separate from the manga and the anime, where in the anime, Pegasus kind of forces Yugi to duel by already taking it to a shadow game and freezing everyone outside. So it's just Pegasus and Yugi who have conscious, who are conscious. And in the manga, Yugi's just ready to go. It actually doesn't even turn to Yami yet. It is actually just regular Yugi who starts the duel. But in the anime, Yami just comes out because Yami is the duelist and Yugi's the little shrimp boy. So turns play out a tad bit differently. Only real difference is in the anime, Pegasus goes first and Yugi goes first in the manga. But Yugi's first move is the same move where he is summoning Komori Dragon. But Pegasus, for some reason, anticipates this play and is able to counter appropriately. Pegasus seals the Komori Dragon with his Dragon Capture Jar. It was interesting, I noticed, I don't know if this was different for you because I don't know if we got a chance to talk about this, but did you notice the foreshadowing at the beginning of when the Yugi and Joey go to the shop to talk to Grandpa and he's pulling up that poster? Did you notice there's a little foreshadowing in the dub? I think you mentioned that it isn't the same in the sub.
In the dub, I believe the poster you're talking about is showing Harpy's pet dragon fighting Blackluster Soldier.
Yes. Which
would foreshadow the eventual duel with when we'll get there when we get there. Spoilers for a 20-year-old show.
We'll get to it.
But in the subs, it was actually Hercules Beetle versus Celtic Guardian, which I kept an eye out for that in the Yugi versus Weevil match, and it does not happen. So it's just completely different.
No, those two monsters are played, and we'll get to that, but that's not in the same kind of way that the Blackluster Soldier and the Harpy's Pet Dragon are talked about. And the same thing happens, another foreshadowing moment happens in the duel with Pegasus and Yugi. I don't know if it's the same for you, but there was a literal foreshadow to a holy crap, we will get to it kind of moment.
Jog my memory, because I'm an old man. What exactly is this? Or is this a we'll get there?
It's mostly a we'll get there because it's kind of the biggest spoiler of like the whole show, and they have it in the second episode, but it's just alluding to two monsters who battle.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Pegasus is talking about it when he's talking about how he wasn't the original maker of dual monsters and was alluding to the whole they played shadow games 5,000 years ago with the millennium items and everything, and the monsters were played differently and da-da-da-da. This is all omitted from the manga. This isn't anything. This is mainly just so they can buff and kind of give you a little bit more lore on the millennium items and kind of some more backstory on making the dual monsters more relevant. Not really shown in the manga, is mostly just to kind of give you a little bit more backstory on what we're here for, dual monsters and millennium items.
One other thing that Pegasus does that's a little weird, he just speaks English in the sub.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he'll just throw out a line and just English.
They do allude that he is an American in the manga, so that might be why.
So the first enemy of the series is the American.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Very interesting that they would go with making an American the creator of what would be like the biggest Japanese card game since Hanafuda.
Very interesting how they would do that, but we'll have to wonder that another moment, because as we go along, Pegasus then plays Dragon Piper after stealing the Komori Dragon with Dragon Capture Jar, and Yugi plays Silver Fang. They start battling, Yugi loses the round, and in the manga, they go at it with another round with two different monsters, and Yugi loses that battle too, then makes a deal, then Pegasus makes the deal with Yugi that if Yugi loses, he will have to participate in the Duelist Kingdom tournament. In the anime, Pegasus just gives kind of like that more lore I was alluding to about with the Millennium items, and that we are kind of somewhat aware about at this point. At this point, Yugi's starting to really ponder how is he going to get around this Millennium Eye, how is he going to get around these tricks. He decides to use, I think, the sixth duelist sense is how they explain it in the manga, but basically thinks like he's playing like another card and then plays a card he doesn't know about. Pegasus thinks it's the one card, and it actually is a different card. He thinks it's like a zombie card. I forget what it's called, Skeleton Warrior.
The sixth dual sentence that you're talking about, it's years away, but in the show Zexal, they do in fact like say that in universe, a powerful enough duelist can make the card that they want appear on top of their deck.
Oh, so like Heart of the Cards, but mega.
Yeah, you can absolutely just like force whatever you need to appear. And I did think it was interesting that in the subs, Yamayugi is thinking about how Pegasus is knowing what he's doing, and his theory that he comes up with is that his eye enables Pegasus to hypnotize Yugi and make him play cards.
Oh, they actually don't say that in either the dub or the manga. They just kind of more say that he can kind of read what he's playing, so that's why he's kind of like, okay, well, I'll just think I'm playing a different card, and Pegasus can't read my mind. That's weird. So the card he actually played was Dark Magician, and wins the round that the battle happens in. Pegasus goes, oh, I knew you were going to play that card, actually. This just kind of sealed the deal. Pegasus then plays a Faceless Mage with the Eye of Deception magic card, and Yugi's like, I'm more powerful than that card. I can take that anytime. So they attack, and the round seems to be tied. Pegasus loses life points in the manga, but that isn't alluded to in the anime. Yugi's confused by this, so he then plays Celtic Guardian and tries to attack, but is tricked into being attacked by a possessed Dark Magician that he isn't aware of. Time's starting to run out. If I didn't mention this before, this is actually a time duel. They had 15 minutes to do this, and whoever had the more life points by the end is the winner. Yugi is barely hanging on by a thread, but he has the move to finally beat Pegasus, but time is running out, so he quickly tries to draw and play Summon Skull to win the duel, but unfortunately, time is out, and Yugi loses the duel. Pegasus seemed to have known this all along, and it seemed like Yugi was playing right into Pegasus' hands, and just as a safe measure, Pegasus takes Solomon Moto's soul as incentive for Yugi to come face him at Duelist Kingdom. And that's where the episode ends. In the anime, and actually in the manga too, you see Solomon stuck in the TV. His soul's been taken, and Yugi is understandably distraught by this, and that's where we end episode 2. Also, chapters 1 and 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist, or 1 through 3. Actually, I apologize.
Man, I can't believe the Amish were right about all those screens stealing our souls. No one tell them I said that.
It's okay. They can't hear you anyway.
Oh, thank God.
All right, and now we have to move on to episode 3 and getting to Duelist Kingdom, because now we have to go get Grandpa's soul back.
Yeah, it's time for some emotional turmoil and no actual dueling, because we're getting on a boat. This episode opens up with Joey receiving a videotape in the mail, which you think, given what just happened, he'd be a little bit more wary of, but no, he just watches it, and it's a video from his sister, Serenity. I believe it's Shizuka in the actual, but we're going to call it Serenity for ease of everyone. This video is from his sister telling him that she's going to be having a surgery soon, or is going to be going blind soon unless a surgery can be done, and she didn't want her older brother to forget what she'd look like because they'd been apart for a while. This is very sad for Joey. Yugi then is walking home to the game shop thinking about his grandpa who is half dead, and he sees that there's a letter stuck in the door, and he opens it to find that there are some instructions on how to get to the tournament. He then talks with his friends at school about it, and they explain things out about how he's going to be traveling on a boat to wherever the tournament is, on an island, of course, because that's where boats go. And it also mentions there's going to be a big prize. Does not give an actual amount, but big prize has Joey's attention. I think there's supposed to be a little bit of an insinuation from the friend group that they think Joey is just being greedy and just cares about money. But later on the roof, Yugi and Joey are talking, and they have a flashback to their friendship origins, which is a very summarized version of what we covered in Season 0. There's the bully Ushio, who is picking on them. Joey picked on Yugi first, though, threw the piece of the puzzle into some body of water. Then they had to go and, well, they get beaten up by the bully. Yugi shows up to help defend them, despite how small he is. Joey, grateful for this, gets the puzzle piece back. Friendship is had by all.
I just want to say that it's very interesting, actually, that Joey's seen doing this himself, like getting the videotape and everything himself, because he actually gets the videotape and brings it to the gang. In the manga, we see our gang back in school, kind of like licking their wounds from the match that just had with Pegasus. And funny enough, Grandpa's still with them. He's just in the videotape. He isn't like they kind of will say this later, and it's not really that big of a spoiler, that like his soul's trapped in a car that Pegasus has, that's in Pegasus' possession. But in this, he's trapped in the VHS tape that he was stuck in, or that like he was delivered, that Yugi got delivered. So he's just in like a video camera and can talk and like give advice and everything in the manga. But we're actually reintroduced to Bakura, who has his general, normal, docile self, which is kind of funny. Then going on to the Serenity tape, Joey brings it along thinking the same thing that you were just alluding to, that he got a tape for Duelist Kingdom for some reason, because he isn't really established in the manga. But they all actually watch the tape together. There isn't any like question about what he wants to do, and he's sitting there kind of going like, "Oh, I need like the money for surgery." I think in the dub they quoted at 3 million.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of where things get different. And I know that Joey ends up trying to sneak on the ship. I know I'm getting a little ahead of everything, but Yugi just gives Joey a star chip and the card, the Honor of the King's Right card, the money card, basically, so he can enter the tournament. And offers to train him right up to when it departs. So I don't understand. I guess the grandpa training was just a little padding, because there they go explaining how, because you could go, oh, that's how they explain Joey being like a good duelist, or at least like a better experienced duelist by Duelist Kingdom. But in this, they actually do kind of do a one-off panel where he's saying like, oh, I'll train you and I'll make you good.
That's very different, and does fill in a couple of weird, I guess, soft drama points that'll come up a little bit later.
Yeah, and then one other thing. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to the boat.
So getting to the boat, Yugi is there at the docks with a bunch of other duelists to get aboard and go to Duelist Kingdom when he hears a commotion and he sees that Joey is being taken off of the premise by a couple of security goons saying that only duelists with star chips are able to get on board. Yugi walks up, gives him a star chip, and then I guess just looks at the guards and says, yeah, call out my sincere, honest heart like it's a bad thing.
I think they call Pegasus, and Pegasus is like, yeah, it's fine. You actually, so in the anime, Joey, Taya, and Tristan are all ones who try and stow away on the ship. Taya and Tristan do it successfully. But in the manga, they're all with Yugi, and it seems to be no conflict. And you know who else is with them? Bakura.
Huh.
Which is, I know, different.
That's weird. Well, keeping it the same, Tristan and Taya are able to sneak aboard by getting inside some shipping container, which is then crane lifted onto the boat. Then, we're on the boat, it's travel along, and we enter the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. I'm not crying, you're crying. It's my Valentine, or my Kujaku.
Miss Harpy Lady herself.
Anyway, my notes that she knows Yugi as the person who beat Kaiba, and that a bunch of people would recognize him, says that she's going to take him on, and then walks away. Next scene we have is Joey causing another scene on the boat, complaining about the sleeping arrangements, saying this is a luxury cruise, why is everyone being crammed into one space? When entering the scene are Rex and Weevil, who explain that only the top-rated duelists get the nice accommodations, and everyone else has to slum it here in this mass congregation space. There's a little bit of, I guess, sort of picking out your opponent early, where Weevil and Yugi talk a bit, and Rex and Joey talk. We'll get to that when we get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And Weevil and Yugi have a little bit of an aside where Weevil notes that he knows there's going to be something different going on with the rules for this tournament, and also talks about how other duelists are trading cards around, and that if a duelist doesn't have enough confidence in the deck they're bringing already, they're probably not going to be able to make it in the tournament. And of course, Joey is there trying to trade with everyone.
Hey, he gets the cards he needs to win, so...
He does. Speaking of cards he gets, Joey gets a couple of his iconic cards, such as Salamandra, Baby Dragon, Shield and Sword, and I want to say Kunai with Chain.
It is Kunai with Chain. And fun little fact, in the manga, this is not the first time Baby Dragon is introduced. Baby Dragon is actually shown in the Pegasus Yugi duel, because he'll draw into Baby Dragon and go, I can't use this card because of the Dragon Capture Jar. So I assume that Yugi would give him the card, this being in the story, not in the anime.
Speaking of cards that are given, Yugi does give Joey the all-powerful Time Wizard. And I gotta say, it might have just been the art, his eyes look crazy in this.
Who, Time Wizards?
Oh yeah, they look like bugging out of his face. We then cut to another, well, we'll come back to this in a bit, but meanwhile, we see that Tay and Tristan are sneaking around on the boat, and they make a note of Bakura being on deck, which is probably a little confusing for people who are just watching, because Bakura was not introduced yet. So kind of weird for other characters to make note of him like we're supposed to recognize him.
Yeah, they do that a few times. I guess this is their way of trying to introduce him. I don't really see the point of them not just having him be... the only reason I can think of that they're doing this is so they can allude to what he does a little later in the series. We'll get to it. But it doesn't make too much sense, where I feel like they could have just introduced him normally and had him come with the crew. But I guess they really want to kind of push that like dark Bakura aesthetic and say, okay, there is something a little weird with him, and we have to like shove that in your face a little bit.
Yeah, they're making him the mysterious, long, white-haired stranger.
Whatever, man. This is a new anime, technically, so they can do whatever they want.
He'll be creeping around some backgrounds later, but we then have a brief scene of Mai causing a scene, talking about how a lady can't be sharing rooms with people, and then she sort of baits Rex into inviting her to his room, or he does it himself, which is weird, because I noted earlier, he is 15, she's 24.
He's got hormones raging. He doesn't care about it. It is also the 90s,
yeah.
So that's things like that were weird too.
Yeah, 90s was weird. Not everything was great. We did have those commercials where the Kool-Aid Man came through the wall, though. That was fun.
They don't do that anymore?
I don't know. I don't watch TV. Anyway, we watch Yu-Gi-Oh! After they're back in Rex's room, Mai challenges him to a game where she guesses the cards that are on top of her deck. She does so. This will be made more apparent in a future episode. Not this one, but soon. And then they have a duel off-screen. Rex loses, and she gets the room as a result.
Kicks him the fuck out.
Yep, just gives him the boot. Who can blame her? Cutting back to Yugi and Joey on the deck looking at cards, Weevil approaches them and asks Yugi about beating Kaiba and Exodia. Yugi says, yes, these are the Exodia cards, this is how I beat Kaiba. Weevil says that he was trying to think of a strategy to get around the Exodia cards, and he couldn't think of one until right now. And then the iconic say goodbye to Exodia moment happens, where Weevil just throws the cards off the side of the ship.
Just eats 5 cards into the ocean.
Speaking of things being yeeted into the ocean, Joey then throws himself over the boat into the water to try and collect all the cards. He is making comments about not losing things that are precious to someone, and these being Yugi's grandfather's cards, they're precious to him. There's some allusions to Joey not wanting to lose his sister, who is precious to him, that I think are trying to be made here. Yugi jumps in after Joey. Joey's able to save 2 cards, but Yugi tells him it's not worth it if he drowns. And then Tristan and Taya from the deck of the ship throw a ladder over the side and pull them up. And it just now occurred to me how funny it would be if one of the people on the boat had to explain to Pegasus that the Millennium Puzzle jumped overboard and fell into the ocean.
It'd be funny. It'd be funny if the guards noticed and just all started jumping. They're like, no, we need him here. We need him here.
Yes, let's all just fish up this solid gold puzzle.
Well, bad friend moment in the story, actually, because Yugi doesn't do that in the publication. He actually just gets mad at Weevil and turns into Yami, and then he stays Yami for the rest of the season, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Yugi is pretty much, well, I think there's a couple exceptions that I'm not thinking about right now that I'm just remembering, but yeah, Yami comes out and he's like, I will beat you. And I guess Joey just gets saved off screen. I don't know how he was able to catch up with a literal boat, but dual monsters, nothing makes sense yet.
Nope. Back on the ship with Joey and Yugi pulled out, Joey has an explanation of his situation with his sister and how he needs to win that money to pay for the operation. I think... No, Yugi doesn't give him the thing yet, but this explains to the rest of the cast why he wants to do this so much, and this is his motivation at the moment. And Yami Yugi just sort of appears as a specter in the sky and vows to beat Weevil for getting rid of the Exodia cards.
And we'll have to finally take him on in Duelist Kingdom, which is coming right up.
Yeah, after this word from our sponsor. We're not sponsored, let's move on.
So, we're finally getting into episode 4, which is Duelist Kingdom. The gang finally arrives. There ends up being since Tristan and Taya snuck on and then kind of slightly reveals themselves, there's a bad choke with Tristan. Oh, by the way, one quick thing, since I like talking, I have a hate boner for Tristan. Tristan is not in the duel, like in the room with the duel of Pegasus. It's just Joey and Taya in the story. So that was a fuck you to Tristan. Just a little side note. So he has a bad joke where he's like all nervous that they're gonna catch him. So he walks by the security acting all like, oh, I'm act normal. And they're like, hey, calm down. You're a guest here. He's like, oh yeah, you're right. I am. Sorry. And I'm just like, all right, well, my mood's killed.
Speaking of bad jokes with Tristan, there was one where Taya on the boat mentions seeing Bakura, and Tristan responds, are you Bashura?
No.
I swear to God, that's what it was.
No. That was actually kind of funny. So the contestants gather towards the castle for opening announcements from Pegasus. In the anime on the way, speaking of Bashura, Taya thinks she sees Bakura hiding in the trees, but he's with the gang in the manga, so who cares? Pegasus welcomes everyone, goes over explaining the rules, explaining the glove everyone received has spaces for 10 star chips, and everyone starts with 2. In Yugi and Joey's case, they only start with 1 because they split them up, so they're at a disadvantage. They must stake 1 or more star chips in the duel, so Yugi and Joey must absolutely win their first matches. There is a time limit of 48 hours to get 10 star chips and to get into the castle where they will host the finals. There are new rules that Phoenix alluded to with Weevil earlier about that make strategy a must in this tournament. Pegasus refuses to tell the new rules, though, and says, listen, if you can't get it, you're not worth being here.
The one other thing, well, I guess technically 2 other things that Pegasus says about the rules is that they are 2,000 life points and that there are no direct attacks.
Which is very important, actually, because this should be crazy if you're watching it now and trying to get the rules.
So I would be remiss if I did not bring up what I have uncovered through watching this, which may come as a hot take to some. Other people may have been expecting this, but either way, there's no denying the fact in my eyes that Weevil Underwood saved Duelist Kingdom.
Excuse me?
Weevil Underwood, the little rat bastard that he is, saved the Duelist Kingdom tournament for all the other participants. He was the sacrificial lamb so that everyone stood a chance. And I know what you're thinking. No. But give me a minute and I'll explain. As
Phoenix.
Pegasus...
What? Excuse me. Can you divulge further? I know I just interrupted you from divulging further, but I think you need to kind of give me a whole PowerPoint presentation over audio about this one.
I would love nothing more. So, as established by Pegasus at the start of Duelist Kingdom, the announcement he made to all the competitors was the rules of the tournament. There were 2,000 life points, and there were no direct attacks. And he said there was some other stuff about like the fields being weird, but they got to that later. But with just those rules of life points and no direct attacks, had it not been for the actions of one Weevil Underwood, Yugi could have gone undefeated without playing a single card because he had the 5 pieces of Exodia in his deck. So, without the risk of taking damage and losing, he could have just drawn a card every turn, passed his turn, and done that until he got all the pieces of Exodia. There's very little way to pull a card out of your opponent's hand or make them send a card to the graveyard at the time. And even if there were, it's Yugi. He would have found a way to get it back.
It's true.
So he could have just said, all right, let's duel, draw for turn, pass. No matter what his opponent did, no matter what weird field advantage they would have, they would just wait for Exodia. But the hero that he is, Weevil Underwood, he foresaw this. He says Pegasus told him the rules in advance, so he knew that the only way to make sure he could beat Yugi was to take Exodia off the board. Get it out of the game, everything's fair, you have to duel to win now, you can't just wait.
I think you had to play a monster, but I'm going off of that. Yugi could have just stalled with defense mode for as many turns as he would have needed to get Exodia out. Maybe Takahashi thought about this when making the rules and was like, crap, I have the most broken system for Yugi that he cannot use.
It's super possible, and we do know that Yugi does have other stall cards in his deck. He runs Kuribros, discard it so you don't take any damage. He ran Swords of Revealing Light against Kaiba in their first duel.
What's that one? Giant Soldier of Stone?
Yeah, Giant Soldier of Stone, Mystical Elf, their big walls.
Yeah, 2,000 defense points, and if he got a field power bonus, it could get even higher. I'm pretty sure one duel he had it at 2,600, if I remember correctly. Not in what we've watched so far. In We'll Get to It land.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way. That's sniveling little. I don't think that's a word, but it's a word to me now. That little blue-haired, green-haired, glasses-wearing fuckhead with bugs is truly the savior of Pegasus. Or so we thought.
Now that I'm thinking about it, because Pegasus also dueled Yugi, and he's aware of all this, and he told Weevil the rules. Do you think it possible that Pegasus told Weevil to do that in order so that Pegasus could have a way to beat Yugi?
Maybe not so much outright telling him to do that, but maybe manipulated him in some way off camera, or giving him the kind of steps to take to come to the conclusion. Or at least he maybe just bet on Weevil being a crappy person.
Well, that's always a safe bet.
The tournament begins in 1 hour, so everyone makes their final preparations. The 1 hour goes by. The games begin, and Yugi and the gang already spot Weevil, whom they start to chase. Weevil lures them into the forest, where they find a duel arena for them to have their match in. Yugi demands Weevil puts up both star chips, which Weevil starts to object to. Yugi then says he will put up not only his star chip, but his deck, which is actually, he stakes his life in the manga. But I guess his deck and his life mean the same thing, so who cares?
When he stakes his deck, Weevil does say that if he knew he'd be putting that up, he wouldn't have thrown Exodia overboard.
Oh, he doesn't say that in the dub or the he's in the manga. He wouldn't say that because Yugi's staking his literal life. But Weevil then agrees, saying he can't wait to take Yugi's deck, and then they start the duel. Weevil starts off with Killer Needle, and Yugi responds with Mammoth Graveyard, and the two battle. They both seemingly have the same attack points, so they should be a tie battle. Mammoth Graveyard, though, is destroyed, and Yugi is confused by that. Weevil then explains that the duel arena, it actually has a dual landscape, which gives monsters of certain attributes field power bonuses depending on the land, which is why Weevil lured him into the forest where bugs are the ones that can thrive. Suddenly, Killer Bee is also destroyed, which confuses Weevil, but Weevil doesn't realize that Mammoth Graveyard got his own field power bonus because of the wasteland portion of the field that he didn't think about.
During this segment, when it first appears that Weevil has gotten the upper hand, Weevil does announce that Pegasus told him in advance about the field power bonuses that would be in effect.
That's weird because he doesn't allude to that either the dub or the manga, just says he knows it. Which they do kind of allude that he is someone who is very observant and also probably gets the information he needs very easily.
One more thing is that they have started to draw a crowd as people are excited to see Weevil, who just won a recent tournament, dueling someone that most people don't know.
Well, some people say it's Yugi who defeated Kaiba, so I think at some point they do actually know who it is.
I don't think they say Yugi who defeated Kaiba when it's just the random background extras walking up, and it's Joey who explains to them that that's Yugi who beat Kaiba, I'm his best friend, and these two are sidekicks.
I guess I'm misremembering. Oh well.
It could have been different.
Going back to the duel, Weevil responds by playing Hercules Beetle, who gains their own field power bonus. Yugi plays Feral Imp with a spell card combo, Horn of the Unicorn. Feral Imp does not get a field power bonus, but he using Horn of the Unicorn to try and compensate for that. Feral Imp loses the battle, though, because there's two different explanations that are both bullshit. In the dub, they say, and I don't know if it's also the same in the sub, they say that the field power bonus is always the winner of attacks compared to the other ones. I think that's what it is, but in the manga it's initiative. The one who has the field power bonus has the initiative and will attack first and always win. It's either way it's bullshit, and it was just some way for Yugi to kind of get on the back foot.
In the sub, they explain it as in a battle against a monster that has a field power bonus, it will ignore the equipment that its opponent has on it.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. It was any spell cards or anything like that don't work. That's what they say in the dub too. I was misremembering because I kept thinking about the manga one. But either way, I think it's kind of bullshit, and this is kind of one of the first ass pulls we get with the Duelist Kingdom duels that we will all know and love. Yugi then decides to just defend with a face down defense card. Weevil plays the basic insect laser cannon combo that he played against Raptor, attacks. Yugi then places another face down and then Weevil's kind of getting cocky, so he sets his own little trap. Yugi then places another face down card while Weevil's feeling very sure of himself. Weevil starts really filling his side of the field with bug monsters, and Yugi's kind of letting him play into his hubris. Yugi then plays Dark Magician to kind of lure Weevil to attack. He puts him in defense mode, so he's sure that he will attack, and Weevil kind of goes like, I'll beat your best card and I'll really ruin your morale. And so he has all his monsters attack for some reason, which is definitely illegal. And Yugi plays Mirror Force, which destroys all of Weevil's bug army, and the life points take a pretty serious hit. Yugi shows his chops as a duelist against Weevil, but they allude that the worst is yet to come for him as the episode ends.
And that's going to be a recurring trend with all these 2-part duels.
Oh, I'm winning, but there's something really scary coming soon. Who knows?
Whoa.
Maybe watch the next episode.
Yeah, watch it, kids, and while you're at it, buy these Yu-Gi-Oh cards at your local Walmart.
Go to your local card shop and sell it the fuck out.
Yeah, support your local card shop.
Please do. Actually do that. Don't go to Walmart for all your cards.
Moving on to episode 5, we have the continuation of the Weevil and Yugi duel. This one's going to be a lot less play-by-play detailed because I didn't really take note of it. So I'm just going to cover the important parts. First things first, Mai comes out of the trees to show up and watch the duel also. Makes commentary about how Yugi's not going to do good because Weevil's got a boss monster he's waiting to unleash. Tristan and Joey do a little bit of simping. There's an age gap. It's weird. There's a little bit of unnecessary animosity from Taya to Mai because, I don't know, it was the 90s and they thought pitting women against each other was making a plot. It's not.
No, it is not.
Weevil does sort of half bait Yugi into one of his traps. Yugi attacks, uses monster recovery to get his monsters off of the field when Weevil's trap would activate and replaces it with Kuribros, which then we love to see, our mascot. So Kuribros takes the hit, he goes pop, it's very weird. And then Weevil reveals that no, this is all part of his plan, was to make Yugi do this to get his dangerous monster off the board, because then Weevil plays Larva Moth. And then he comments on how weak it is and applies the Cocoon of Evolution to it. I want to point out, that's not how that works. Cocoon of Evolution equips itself to Petite Moth. Larva Moth can be summoned by tributing Petite Moth. So this is wrong. But he does say that in a few turns the cocoon will hatch and reveal his final boss monster, which I think is a dumb name, but we'll get to that shortly. There's a couple of turns where Yugi plays cards such as Gaia the Fierce Knight to attempt to break through the cocoon, but thanks to the field power, it is too tough for Gaia to be able to punch through. Yugi then plays Curse of Dragon and uses the card Burning Land to destroy the field effect and get rid of its bonus. And so then Gaia moves in for the attack, and it goes through, but instead of just destroying it, it hatches the cocoon early.
This is about like 4 turns in, I think. So I think the full attack points is like 3,500 if I'm not mistaken, but it's 2,600 in this because it was 4 turns.
Weird how they calculated it out. Also, its dumb name, Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth.
That's what they say it is, because it's just Great Moth.
Yeah, they keep calling it Great Moth offhand, but the card he was trying to summon was Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. Which, Perfectly Ultimate, like, that annoys me, having to say those words.
Whatever, it's... I don't even think it should have even been summoned, but they needed to have a big boss monster by the end of it.
Probably not. Anyway, moving on, we have a new fake mechanic about flying monsters being only attackable by other flying monsters. So this unperfectly not ultimate Great Moth is unattackable by anything except for Curse of Dragon, and Curse of Dragon is weaker. Weevil then begins to use the Great Moth to clear away Yugi's board, attacking his face-down Beaver Warrior, which I do feel it's very important to note. Yami Yugi calls Beaver Warrior Louise.
No, he does not.
Yes, that is what they say when it says Beaver Warrior on screen. So going forward, Beaver Warrior is Louise.
I was actually going to say, I think they keep trying to add this like attribute element all of like Pokemon, because that was very popular at the time, to kind of like introduce that into the mechanics of the game. But I don't think they do that in real life Yu-Gi-Oh, or that was never like a mechanic they had. I don't think so. I think it's been pretty generally the same besides like the new mechanics they've added, but I don't think attributes ever played any type of role. And I'm kind of glad they don't, because I just think that's like too much to think about.
Yeah, never in that way. I think the closest they got was there's a number of field spells that will like give a boost to fire but then cause weakness to water.
Yeah,
like
that was early on. That was early on. I think that was like them trying to introduce like field power bonuses, but didn't really catch on, and honestly, I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah. So Yugi decides to bust out one of my favorite cards, Polymerization, and fuse Gaia and Curse of Dragon into Gaia the Dragon Champion, which has equal stats with the Great Moth, and Yugi comments that, well, now that we're tied, neither of us are going to be able to go anywhere with this. And Weevil says, think again, fucker, because they introduce a new made-up mechanic where the Great Moth is shedding its scales. Friendly reminder that bugs have scales. Don't think about that for too long. And those scales are quickly depleting the attack points of Gaia. Weevil notes that when the attack points hit 0, he'll be able to attack Yugi for the win, so Yugi has to come up with something quickly to get out of this. Yugi uses another not how that card works, which is Mayu the Magical Mist, which covers everything in a fine rain, which washes away the scale, so he's no longer losing the stats. Then he summons Summon Skull, and he's like, well, Summon Skull's weaker. He's like, I'll think again, fucker, because thanks to Mayu, it's covered everything in water, and Summon Skull uses a lightning attack, which makes it stronger. And I want to say, Mayu is a card that does work with Summon Skull, but its effect is to destroy monsters whose defense is weaker than Summon Skull's attack, which would destroy the Moth, but not like this. Instead, it makes Summon Skull have 3,500 attack points. He destroys the Moth. He wins.
Yugi's first ass pull of Duelist Kingdom.
Not his last, that's for sure.
He's gonna really ass pull in the next one, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So, Weevil is eliminated. Yugi takes the star chips going up to 3. Joey takes the dual glove. And we end the episode with an I'll get you, Pegasus. I'm coming for my grandfather's soul.
And a big old X in front of Weevil's face. I would like to note, there isn't actually much that's different between this and the original manga. I did want to note, however, that Weevil loses 20 minutes into the tournament, which I feel is very funny to note, being the regional champion and everything, that he loses like probably one of the first duels in the entire tournament.
Oh, he must have been the first person out.
I would hope so, but other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. The same type of ass pools, the same type of plays are made. I think turn for turn, it's actually pretty consistent, which is kind of interesting because that doesn't happen as often as you think.
It's nice when they just make it simple, and when they're doing an adaptation, they adapt it straight from it because they know it works, as opposed to what a lot of movies like to do. We're like, oh, we'll take the name, but we're going to make it completely different and just bait people into coming to the theaters.
Jesus Christ, they're still trying to do that nowadays.
Yup.
But all in all, this was a kind of a, it was a good first duel. You get a good amount of the mechanics of what is to come. You kind of then throw those mechanics out the window, and for the sake of Yugi or Joey or whoever our protagonist at the time is, dueling, and they'll get their own ass pulls that kind of ignore the rules. But all in all, Weevil sucks. Yugi rules. It's great seeing Polymerization for the first time. It's a card that's going to be heavily used for the rest of time ever.
Yep.
Phoenix, what did you think about Weevil and Yugi's duel?
I thought it was an entertaining enough duel. I thought that Weevil was a much less annoying character in the subs versus he's in the dubs, mostly because of his voice. He definitely is presented as a more thinking things out and setting things up duelist. And I think that's a nice different change versus the past two duels that we've had where Yugi went up against Kaiba, who, for as much as you can say that was strategy, it was put out the biggest monster in the game at the time of Blue Eyes. And then there was Pegasus, where Pegasus was just toying with him thanks to, we'll get to it.
It's basically a good taste of what is to come for Yugi and Joey as they face different duelists with different personalities, maybe not on the same level as Kaiba. And yeah, you talk about putting big monsters on and just whoever has the biggest monster wins. And we do have to remember that was the first episode, so we had to take it a little slow. Now we're just kind of going to throw random life points out and random attack points out because of field power bonuses, and we're just going to just throw whatever works that makes sense for the plot. But it is a good way to start off Duelist Kingdom, and it excites me to kind of keep going with this and kind of reliving these memories.
Yeah, it'll be fun to go through it and have the refined mind of an adult to be able to go, wow, this was pretty dumb.
Wow, the dialogue translations to English were pretty off point, but also funny.
There's a character I'm very much looking forward to seeing the differences that they have versus the dub and the sub, but we'll get to that in maybe 2 or 3 of our episodes.
We have to still kind of block these all out. I think what's coming next is the Mai duel.
Yes, Mai will be coming up next, and then after that, I want to say is Mako?
Yeah, it's usually, they kind of go vice versa, Yugi, Joey, Yugi for a little bit. So I think it's Mako versus Yugi. Are we going to cover that in the next one?
Bringing up the episode list right now. There's the Great Moth. Actually, we're going to be covering 3 duels next time.
Ooh.
We're going to be covering Mai, we're going to be covering Mako, and then we're going to be covering the stolen Blue Eyes White Dragon and our introduction to Mokuba.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be a big one for us.
Yep, that's a 3-parter.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, we'll have to get working on that.
It's a chunky one. We might not have a ghost of a chance.
No! You ruined it.
Oh, got him.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that being said, all right, we want to start signing off here.
Sure. Is there anything you want to plug?
Just follow us on Kuribros on all the social media.
Sure, follow me on Twitch and or YouTube. YouTube is the better one if you want to watch my stuff, because that's where everything gets uploaded. Twitch only keeps it for like 2 months. You can find me at twitch.tv/PhoenixFarce or YouTube at Phoenix Farce. Same name for both. I do regular streams of various online card games, mostly Master Duel stuff for all the Yu-Gi-Oh fans out there. I've also branched out into Marvel Snap, Magic the Gathering Arena, Legends of Runeterra, and any other games that might have my attention for the time. If you're looking for any regularity with that stuff, the only thing I do regularly is every Monday I go through and I watch a bunch of duels and commentate on them. So if you just want to have something where you don't need to be that engaged and you just like watching the game, that's where you go. Those happen every Monday.
Awesome. And you should check them out on that. All right. Well, my name's Vandy.
I've been Phoenix.
And signing off. See you next time.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there.
Bye.
Goodbye!